Welcome to the CareRight podcast, your go-to resource for all things elder care. Guiding us through this journey is Anna Kruger, the founder of CareRight Incorporated, and she has been steadfastly supporting families across the United States. Each episode brings you expert insights, innovative strategies, and practical advice, ensuring that you're well equipped to provide the best possible care for your loved ones. Expect to gain valuable knowledge, learn from real-life stories, and get inspired to take action in your own caregiving journey. So buckle up as we dive into an in-depth discussion of elder care planning and together embrace the journey of caring for aging loved ones on the CareRight podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Anna Kruger, the owner of CareRight Incorporated. Today, I'm actually interviewing one of my teammates, Marianna, who is one of our care advocates here in the Southwest Florida market. So this is the Caregiver Crisis podcast that we do periodically throughout the month. And I thought it would just be an interesting topic today to talk about care advocacy and just the things that, you see in these care communities on a daily basis for clients that you're working with and just other residents that are in a care facility, kind of some concerns that you see and how you address those issues. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Marianna, for being on the podcast today. I'm really excited to have one of our own teammates on the podcast today. So how long have you been an advocate, personally, but also professionally?
Wow. Okay. So personally, I've been an advocate probably for about 7 years.
Yeah.
And professionally combined. I've been with you guys for about 1.5 years, but prior to that, I was doing it for people in my own family for many, many years because I was the only of one of the siblings that lived close by.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had elderly parents here.
Yep. And you saw the challenges of quality care delivery with your own parents, and that sparked a passion in you for when I had my advocate position open. You're like, yeah, this is a good fit. And it absolutely has been a great fit. You're amazing at what you do. Tell me, tell us a little bit about what you do and, maybe a couple examples of how we hope that when we are moving our loved one into a care community, for example, that they're getting the quality of care that we would hope or that we would expect from the care community. Can you share an example of some issue that you came upon when you did one of your client visits and how you handled that?
Well, there's a lot in that question. The first part of it, what I do is I visit my clients on a bi-weekly basis. Twice a week, I guess. Is that bi-weekly? I guess it is. And we, I go in and I basically become almost like a family member that isn't a family member. I mean, that's the best way I could put it. As a matter of fact, many, many times I've been asked if I'm her daughter or his daughter or, sibling or whatever. I go in there in, a positive frame of mind, and I really go in there because not only do I care about the person and it's my job, but I want to see what's going on, but I also want to help them get what they're supposed to be getting, and most of the time are not. And also, honestly, cheer them up, because a lot of times when I walk in there, they're not in the greatest state of mind, especially after a weekend. I've noticed most of these places that I visit, they don't have a lot of staff over the weekend. They're always short-staffed, but over the weekend, it's more like a skeleton crew. Yeah. And I noticed that when I walk into their apartment or their room after a weekend, it's usually in complete disarray. And they are more confused if they have any kind of, even if they don't have, dementia or a mental issue of that would make them confused. They seem way more confused on Mondays than they do later in the week. And I think it's because of lack of interaction with people over the weekend. So when I go in there, I really want to help them, again, feel like a person. That's very important, because many times they start feeling that they're not viable people, or even being treated as people over not even over the weekend, all the time, but the weekend is worse. So there's so many issues that I come across on a weekly basis. And of course, some weeks are not as difficult as others, but I come across issues that are, sometimes it's not the facility's fault, or the community's fault. Sometimes, it's because they're so short-staffed, and after COVID, we're having a problem getting people back there to work because everybody took off or went to private care. But there's some issues that are consistent throughout most of the places that I visit, and it is being short-staffed. It is people not following through with some of the things that they say they're going to do, and then never do. Also, just people not really wanting to do, maybe they're burnt out. Maybe they've been working 4 days in a row or 3 days in a row and they've had it. And this is stressful for a person, even if they're working there. And then you could always immediately tell the person who started working there or started in this field that only did it because it is a decent paying job for these people. It's not about really wanting to help anyone. It's more so about them just wanting to get a decent paycheck at the end of the week or the end of the month, however they're paid. But there's so many instances, Annalee. I could go on for hours of things that I've taken care of for people. I've done everything from following up and bringing to the attention of nurses and doctors that visit these people that someone may have skin cancer. I'm noticing new things pop up on their face or on their arms. I've gone through situations where someone was admitted to a hospital. I got the call on a Saturday night, and then they were released and sent back. And then only to find out, because of the pain they were feeling for 2 months or a month, I bring them to an orthopedic surgeon and find out that they've got a broken collarbone after they've been released from the hospital. And if I were not there to physically observe what's going on, because even the people working in these facilities will misdiagnose what is, obviously something is wrong, his shoulder's swelling up, or, no, they don't even entertain the idea that they missed something. It's like, well, we already did that, we're not doing it again. Well, I'd like you to do it again. I'd like you to check it again. I'd like you to please take another look, because they're in so much pain, they can't even move their arms. So there's so many instances of recognizing the signs of a UTI. They're hallucinating, they're seeing things in their apartment or in their room that aren't there. So you say, maybe you should give them a test for a UTI. Oh no, they just finished a bout with antibiotics a week and a half ago. Yeah, right, but they're prone to this kind of thing. So it's almost like you can't even believe. And what's amazing is that many of the nurses and caregivers that are with these people all the time are with them all the time. But that could also work in the wrong direction, because if you're a nurse, for example, that's with the same family or the same person or the same people all the time, it's kind of like you're so in it, you don't see what's going on. But somebody like me that's coming and going in and out of the situation immediately can recognize something's not right here, and we need to check it out. Whereas, oh no, he's always like that, or she's always like, well, no, because it's only been the last 2 weeks. And prior to that, I never saw this before. It's only been the last 2 visits I had. And prior to that, I never saw this behavior before. So let's try to see if we can do something about this, or is it something that's just fine? And that's what we hope for, that it is just fine, not that I am finding. But I will tell you, most of the time when I point something out, and I'm not a doctor, but most of the time when I point something out, it ends up being the case.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, one of the things that we do as advocates, we go to the residents, you know, for us, the clients, but for residents in a care community, we go to their care conferences, whether in person or virtually, because the family may or may not be able to attend. And we are the care patrol, if you will, so that the family can just be the family and not have to be the care patrol, and make sure that dad doesn't have 3 depends on, or that he's staying in bed all day because they don't have staff to take him, you know, to take him to the bathroom, or to get to, you know, to get out of bed. So that's what we do, is we are kind of the care patrol, but we're also using a collaborative approach, because we know that these healthcare workers are, they're burning out, they're overwhelmed, that the system itself, the healthcare model that we use here is broken. And so we've got good people trying to do the right thing for patients or residents most of the time, but there's also always going to be people who maybe shouldn't even be in long-term care, working in long-term care, because their heart's not in it, right? But I know that as we, you know, when we go to care conferences on behalf or with our clients, and we have this whole list of stuff to address at the care conference, right? But we constantly are always having to follow up and circle back. Did this get done? Did that get done? Did you call the doctor? Is the podiatrist coming?
Right.
Did the swallow eval get ordered? You're constantly having to like advocate. I was going to say harp. I was going to say harp, but harp and advocate, the same thing. We're constantly doing that, because otherwise these residents or our clients don't have anybody that can just constantly do that on their behalf, right? You know, and so I know that the challenges are very real. You know, I was seeing a person as well, and in a long-term care setting in a nursing home, and I'm not a nurse either. But you don't have to be a nurse to know when something's wrong. And so literally within 2 seconds of looking at my client, clearly there was an issue. And in this particular case, you know, it's always a fight to get quality care sometimes. And so I had finally got the staff to follow the doctor's orders for compression hose, right? That she needs her compression hose on all of the time. That's like the doctor's order. And so they had them on her, but they were rolled down to her little legs. And so literally she had this much, like a 1/4 of an inch indent into her leg, because they didn't pull them up, or they didn't keep them pulled up. So when I get there, literally I can see, just looking at her in a second, that is like, oh my gosh, her TED hose aren't on properly. We need to pull them up. But yet there were nurses and CNAs walking past her the whole time, and no one took the initiative. That's my gripe. No one takes the initiative. It's hard. I could say it's hard, because I don't want to have like 1,000 people shred me for saying that. It's hard to find workers to take the initiative to make sure that the care is delivered how it should be. Is properly. Part of the challenge is because I mean, healthcare's, we've always been short staffed, but now it's even harder to find quality workers. It's always been a challenge to try to find quality workers. And a lot of these care communities, because they have to meet staffing ratios to be compliant with the state, right? So what they've had to do, because of the staffing shortage, is they do a lot of temp nurses or temp CNAs, that they're just agency staff coming in to make sure that they meet their census guidelines for the state. But these are people that don't know the residents at all. So there's no continuity of care. They don't know the residents. They're not taking time to read the care plan. So they, you know, they're just as a body there to like tend to whatever needs to be tended to during that shift. But that's one of the things, or one of the reasons why we see a drop in quality of care, is because there's just too much turnover in staff, that there's no one really knows these residents, and that's why the care is so compromised. I'm being careful. Compromised in these care communities. And even sometimes with the home care workers, you know, there's just a lot of turnover. And in healthcare, in the industry itself, there's just massive turnover in leadership, you know, like where my mom was, and where we have a couple of clients in the last 2 years, they've had 8, 9 different executive directors. They go months without having anybody in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
in these roles. And when there's such a turnover and instability in key leadership positions like directors of nurses or executive directors or administrators, then that's when you see that it's the wild, wild west in most of these care communities. And unfortunately, that's where we're at right now, is
Yes.
massive turnover in leadership positions. So there's really no one running the place. There are new people running the place, and there's just so much. It's overwhelming, because there hasn't been leadership. And so they're brave because they took the job, but now they're like, oh my gosh, they find themselves in over their head, and then they're gone.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases, I also see people in the position of leadership that's not their position. Like
Yeah.
you may see a nurse running a facility because they have no director right now. And then
Yeah.
she's super overwhelmed because she's dealing with all the medical issues and running,
Trying to fill in.
Right. And it's just overwhelming and too much. And even if she's wonderful and would be great if she only had her one job, now when you spread her that thin, I guarantee, I mean, I know me, I'd be in my car driving home at night saying, oh my God, I forgot to do this. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like there would be no way to get it all done. You'd constantly have, and that accounts for the reason that there's such a lack in follow-up. Because that's a big problem, is that people will have, put an order to do something and then they don't check that it's been done.
Right.
So, if it weren't for us going there and saying, hey, wait a minute, a week ago we spoke about this and here I am, and, nothing's changed. Has anything changed that I'm not noticing? And if they say, well, no, actually, we were waiting for this, or it's kind of like you're almost like a reminder for them too. In a way, they should love us because we're helping them. We're actually helping them remember what they're supposed to be doing. But I think a lot of the time it's funny because when I show up and they don't expect me, it's really, that's actually a good thing to do every once in a blue moon, because I don't like to do it too often because I'm not looking to get them, that's not the point. But when I show up, it's always like, oh my God, what are you doing here today? And I'm like, oh, well, there was a change in my, schedule. I had to change my time. I mean, and everything is not good, in pretty much every single checkbox is not checked that normally needs.
And it's good to do that sporadic visits and change up the schedule so that that's our role, is to advocate. And sometimes people get complacent because they're like, oh, Marianna's only going to be here on Tuesdays and Fridays. We don't have to worry about, so-and-so any
the rest of the week.
and then unfortunately that's often how it feels and how it seems, like you shared with me today that the condition of a resident or a client room that clearly hadn't been tended to for likely days on end.
For sure.
And so, the whole reason we do what we do is so that our people that we work with and advocate for have a better quality of life, and the family who may or may not be local is up to date and communicated with. And so that allows them to just be, the son or the daughter and not have to worry about, all of these different kind of things that we check on a regular basis when we go to see our clients. One thing for those that are trying to be an advocate for their own loved ones, or trying to be your own advocate in general, if you find yourself in the healthcare space, whether it's the ER, the hospital, or a senior care community or rehab unit, one of the things that you do and that we do on a regular basis is just call light audits. How long does it take? And then we literally time it. Like put the button on and we literally stopwatch it. Like we literally time it. The longest lately that I've had is an hour and 38-minute wait for someone to respond. And they didn't know because I came on an off day, like on a non-scheduled day. And so thankfully my client didn't need anything. I was just there to do a call light audit, and it took an hour and 38 minutes. So when we address these issues, with the administrator or the executive director, it's an opportunity for them to fix their systems and educate their staff on, what if this person was on the floor or had a heart attack or was having a stroke, and an hour and 38 minutes is not acceptable whatsoever.
No.
And so sometimes what happens is they'll respond to the call light and be like, okay, Harry, I'll be back. And then they don't come back.
Mm-hmm.
But because a lot of these call lights are computerized, they know that they have to shut off the light because otherwise it triggers. It took too long for you to respond to the call light. So they'll come in and they'll shut it off or reset it, and then they may or may not come back. So there's just, trying to use a collaborative approach with the healthcare professionals. You would hope that they would be like, oh, good, we have another supplemental team of helping Ethel or Marvin have, the best possible care. But we're usually looked at in a very negative way because we're holding people accountable. And people don't like that in general. In general, people don't like that. So I just thought it'd be, cool to just, have a conversation about, patient advocacy for those families that are trying to do their own advocacy, or if you're listening to this podcast and you find yourself in a care community of some sort, we teach families how to be a bold advocate. If they don't want to hire a professional or work with a professional who does this, then we teach families how to do it, because I'm telling you, anyone who's in a care community absolutely has to have an advocate.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely.
And it's just fun because we're there to, the clients are happy to see us because they know that we're their advocate, and they share things with us that they wouldn't necessarily do to their families, or share with their families, or share with the other staff, because there's so much turnover. They don't necessarily have a relationship with the people taking care of them. But it's just cool what we do, and it's just fun to make their lives that much better.
Yes, I agree.
That's why we do what we do.
Yes, I enjoy that. Yes, and I do enjoy making them happy. And one of my people said to me a few weeks ago, everybody keeps asking me what you do for me. And she said, she makes me happy. Oh, so that was very exciting for me to hear. Yeah. She helps me with things nobody else helps me with. I've heard a lot of different things, but that she makes me happy was very rewarding for me.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. That always makes you feel good. We know what we do is important, and it's always fun to have our families acknowledge, hey, this is really important. Thanks for doing what you're doing for my loved one or doing for me. So cool. Well, good. Thank you, Marianna, for
You're welcome.
Taking some time out of your schedule, and I'll let you get back to doing some advocacy work.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning into the CareRight podcast. We hope today's discussion has provided you with valuable insights. If so, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our podcast with others who might find it helpful. Remember, CareRight is more than just a podcast. It's a community dedicated to supporting family caregivers with comprehensive care planning, crisis management, and resources for every stage of aging. Stay connected with us for future episodes as we continue to explore essential topics in aging planning, elder care, and financial planning. Until next time, take care, plan wisely, and remember, you're not alone in your caregiving journey.